How did you come up with the idea that you're working on?
We interviewed hundreds of people, literally.
It was actually a really academic pursuit.
It was actually like very random because I launched a different idea.
A lot of the degen trading that we were doing in college.
We wanted something that was really just like intrinsically motivating.
I was working for Facebook Connectivity at the time, leading a project for rural access over cellular technologies on networks that relied on satellite. And this was kind of the precursor to Helium, actually. We were working a lot with satellite companies in this space and had, the realization that the internet and the way media is distributed to satellite-based networks, it doesn't scale. That gave birth to what we're doing. 80+% of internet traffic is video. And when you look at video, it's a long tail distribution, and that a small portion of the videos make a large volume of the traffic that people are watching the same content over and over again. So by distributing with television infrastructure, we can get one piece of media out to many, many users with the minimal amount of resources, and we reduce the cost of distributing it out to really far areas where it's really expensive to build high-speed connectivity infrastructure.
A big part of our curiosity around the technology was just, what can you do with this? How can it show up as part of people's lives? With Solidity, it can be really complex to try to do something new. So we felt a lot of stress publishing anything to mainnet that was actually original. We kind of realized that that's a pretty big pain point. And then as consumers, there was so much friction, thinking about things like wallets and interactions. We spent a long time thinking about, okay, like, if you threw this out and started from scratch, like, what would the ideal be like? So we started to sort of experiment and explore there.
We think that the next killer app in crypto is going to be social. There's always been a good social breakthrough in each of the innovations we have had in technology. So for crypto, it hasn't happened yet. A lot of people have spoken about it, that Vitalik, A16Z, Balaji have spoken out publicly about there's going to be a social angle. So we think no one has executed it well, and we're going to do it.
First in crypto, which is sort of how we got into the space in the first place, definitely guilty of having been bootstrapped by speculation. High level, when you build a product in crypto, on the one hand, you need to balance being able to offer immediate value to on-chain users while building a product that can be translated into having real net benefit for users that are not currently on-chain. So this sort of initial entry and idea came from seeing an issue that we saw in the traditional markets, but we also very clearly saw that there was an immediate use case for on-chain users as well, which namely was building a tool for diversification for traders on-chain.
As we talked to different DAOs and communities, we heard feedback from that people just really wanted a token-gated Notion. Even though everybody's using Discord and using Notion or Discord, we felt like that's how we want to get started. Let's get something that people want, building a Web3 native operation platform.
Initially, we were looking to build a hot wallet solutions that's lighter weight than Fireblocks or BitGo, but allows organizations to have burner wallets to allow their employees to be able to have access to companies' cryptocurrency. But very quickly realized that, wow, the custody space is extremely saturated, and a lot of customers was much more interested in the aspect of a product that enabled them to enforce very granular policies across the wallet account.
Mostly, I had started up with some friends, a bank, a TradFi bank, and when DeFi was starting, I think we have a vision that real-world assets and real-world people have to come onto DeFi. It has to really basically take over. And so creating that financial infrastructure on-chain, and that's where we then fine-tune it further and further, and we realize, okay, there's no basically credit market, if you will, like efficient credit market on-chain. And so that's what we're creating. Use a lot of the products that are out there, and we saw how inefficient they are. And like knowing some of the efficiencies that exist in the real world, it's like, oh fuck, we can do this better.
Cross-border payment problem exists like for 100 years. It's expensive. It's significantly delayed, and you have to go through a bank UI. Sometimes the KYC, KYB, and all that stuff is there. And we're like, the crypto through the blockchain, we're able to overcome that or solve that with immediate settlement. And then we were thinking about other business ideas with that underlying infrastructure. And we bump into the payroll, which I had experience in, and know how the infrastructure exists. And that's how we came up with the holistic idea.
Ethereum had 3 or 4 projects in every bucket. Solana had at least one project, and Cosmos had a stable coin and a DEX. That's it. So we decided to take the most successful crypto primitive with PMF and revenue from Ethereum and bring it into Cosmos. And it just happened to be the case that at the very same time, some of the early technology that would make this possible was just coming to market.
We were on the holidays and we were just being geeks about payments because that's what we had been doing for a few years already.
So I was working at Revolut, like doing card payments for 4 years. And yeah, like we were geeks about payments, basically. That's.
We're engineers by heart, so it's like everything we see, we're like, how can we solve this like 10 times faster or 10 times cheaper or 10 times,
We wanted something that was really just like intrinsically motivating, right? And at least in the context of Modulus, zero-knowledge cryptography is kind of like magic. AI is kind of like magic. And so being able to layer magic on top of magic was pretty exciting. It had us excited to wake up in the mornings. And so the thought was, even if nobody else was excited to work on this problem, we would be. And maybe that's good enough to start something. Thankfully, other people do seem to care at least a little bit. That's been, I guess, the motivation, yeah.
I've been trading cryptos for like 9 years now at this point, and like more traditional securities. And I used to want to be a banker for the longest time. Obviously didn't, but trying to build a product for myself, like something that makes trading feel better. Like just a better trading experience is kind of the like root thesis.
It actually came from Oliver because Oliver used to work at a crypto company and he saw firsthand how token investing worked and he saw how manual the process was internally. Thought to himself, like, surely there's no way that this is how it works at scale. And we talked to various friends in crypto and we all saw that they were kind of going through the same thing where they were using a combination of Google Sheets, Slack, calendar reminders as a way to manage investing schedules. And it was just so painfully obvious that this is not the way it's supposed to be done. There's software to automate a lot of this stuff. It makes zero sense. Somebody is going to do it, and if it's not them, it's going to be us.
In the middle of 2022, there was a backlash from a lot of game developers and gamers from how they saw the influence of NFTs within games themselves. Web3 games at the time, where all they did was taking game assets and putting it on a blockchain while keeping the entire game loop the same, didn't really represent a value add for players themselves. What we wanted to do was to see what was possible with building games natively on the blockchain.
It was actually like very random, like the app we have today is being used in a completely different way than what we had in mind. And that it was all because, like, when we launched these up and down meme coin things, people were enthusiastic about it. Whereas when we were asking users about structured products, derivatives, everybody was super scared about it, and it didn't have like a lot of users.
So essentially, just talking to users, and also like going through multiple cycles.
We met people that reached out to us and they said, hey, we have this problem. We've raised X number of millions of dollars or tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And we want to be able to host an event at a conference. And we want to be able to fund it with the organization's money and not have to rely on team members to pay out of their own pocket and get reimbursed. We always thought that that was kind of a silly problem for people with hundreds of millions of dollars to have. But as we dug into it a little bit more, we realized, oh wait, like a lot of money and a lot of developer talent had gone into building the on-ramps into crypto. That off-ramping and supporting the business use cases have been left kind of completely unattended.
If you talk to developers, generally people say the tools that we have right now are lacking. We have opportunities to build out more tooling for developers. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of amazing companies building really great developer tools, but there's no company that kind of wants to work with all of them like we do.
I came up with this idea because I launched a different idea and I built it in 2 months and I thought, oh, I could just launch this and see what happens because I could do it in a very short amount of time. And then I launched it and I got feedback. People weren't using it, but the retention was slow and they were churning off. But like I got a bunch of feedback. I talked to all the people who stopped using it and I figured out why they weren't using it. And so I switched from a DEX aggregator to a wallet, and that's where I am now.
We interviewed hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people. This was, like 2021, so people were very excited about crypto, and they were saying, yeah, I have this like student loan, I have credit card debt, and I'm like super sad about that, but the crypto is gonna like save me. But there was this one conversation that was like the crystallization moment, and she said, yeah, crypto is interesting. I just got into crypto, and my friend recommended I buy Ethereum. But I saw it was like $4,000. It was too expensive, so I bought the cheaper Ethereum. That moment where you say like, what is the cheaper Ethereum? Why didn't you buy a fraction of Ethereum? Why are you betting like all the money that you have in crypto into that single asset? This doesn't smell right. So that's how we end up with the concept for Arch.
Because we started in 2018 our crypto business, arbitrage crypto business, and we understand the difficult thing that was get pesos and have crypto with compliance, accountability, all the things around the no-regulated market.
In the future, you'll have all these micro digital economies, and to function for any of those economies, you will need some kind of non-fungible asset. So if you have games, you will need to have non-fungible things in those games, like football players in a football game. If you have real-world assets eventually coming on-chain or any form of real-world assets being handled on the blockchain, that will have some non-fungible element in it. If, based on the current progress in AI, we're gonna have, let's say, things to counter deepfakes or things to prove authenticity, you're gonna have some form of non-fungible asset. And there is no infrastructure to handle this right now. So that's how I get interested in a problem. And my background is, I did a PhD, so I started just doing research. I didn't start with the idea for a startup, I just did research for a while and I came up with a few things. And eventually this became Caviar.
So ZK is a great scaling solution, as we've seen with rollups. However, ZK has been quite limited in terms of privacy because the data has to be stored off-chain. So I really feel like FHE is actually going to be the endgame for on-chain privacy, just because for one, you can directly store encrypted states on-chain, but for two, you can do computation on top of encrypted states, which really opens up for a pretty wide range of applications that can be built.
It was actually a really academic pursuit. So I was still doing my sports gambling thing, and my friend who was running an on-chain fund came to me and he's like, I have these finance problems, and he knows I just like solving math problems. And so I spent a lot of time doing that for fun. And afterwards I was like, is this useful? And he's like, absolutely, you should make a protocol for this. And this Ethos came to fruition.